Hello and welcome to the final round of the 4 Decades of Imola and the final race for Apex Rear-Wing for the year. This is 2019 and this is Imola. My name is Alistair Schmidt. Joining me in commentary tonight, Michael Zalavari filling in for Matt Dunlop. Good evening.
Good evening, Stairs. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm very happy to be along again for this, the finale of the 4 Decades of Imola.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see how this one finishes, and an evolution of a racetrack that sadly is no longer used in Formula One, but we get to dream a little tonight and see what it would be like. If you want to join in for the live race, live timing, Apex Rear-Wing or arwleague.liveraces.com is the link. You can also support us on Facebook and Patreon if you would like to. Michael, let's have a quick look at the drivers' points heading into this round.
Yes, and the championship is being led by the Ferrari racer Ziras, who has taken 2 wins this season. He'd need a disaster to lose that championship this evening. Second place is Sam Smith, taking a win in the 80s. And then third place is a tie between Goofball Antics, a new driver to Apex Rear-Wing, Bad Apple. Then we have Berto, Brenton Foley, Netherrealmian, Madbird returning this week, and Fruity Ping and Bagsy rounding out the top 10.
That's right. Now let's have a quick look at the racetrack for the final round of the 4 Decades of Imola, and much of it unchanged from the version used in the 2001 round. This is the Tamburello corner. You can see that gravel trap. They're still actually present. A lot of the gravel traps all around this racetrack have been removed since 2001. Down into the Villeneuve chicane, another very, very fast chicane taking you down towards the Tosa hairpin, the very important left-hander and a very good overtaking opportunity. Now working our way back up the hill towards the Piratella left-hander over this blind brow and a huge downforce corner. You can see on the right-hand side there, huge asphalt runoff areas to improve the safety at this racetrack, and again here down into the Aqua Minerale double right-hander. AI lap bed having a little bit of fun on the entry to that corner. Now down to the Variante Alta corner, which has had its curves reprofiled somewhat and more exit asphalt runoff there. And down the hill towards Ravazza. These corners every bit as difficult as they have been in the previous ones. Fast exit now. The biggest difference in the racetrack is the exclusion of the Variante Bassa chicane. So there's a flat out run all the way to the start finish line, and that is a lap of the Imola circuit.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how much of the character of the circuit has remained the same over the 4 decades that we've run, or that you guys have run at ARW, and how much of that is still maintained even with the changes to modernise and make the circuit more safe. Yeah. I actually really like the exclusion of that final chicane as well. I think it turns the front straight into an actual straight instead of a bit of a acceleration zone, so to speak.
Absolutely. We lost a huge overtaking opportunity with the removal of the Tamburello as a very fast left-hander. Of course, for obvious reasons, that corner had to be turned into a chicane, and of course the Villeneuve one as well. But that removed from the final corner in the 1988 version of the circuit, that chicane, a huge flat-out section to the Tosa corner, which was the biggest overtaking opportunity on the racetrack. As soon as those that flat-out section was interrupted by the chicanes, it made those overtaking opportunities essentially non-existent. So removing the Variante Bassa gives us another flat-out section from Ravazza to Tamburello, and it'll be interesting to see what it produces in this spec of Formula One car, because it's never been run in Formula One.
Yeah, this is true. I think the Imola circuit nowadays is used more as a bit of a test facility, or as a national racing facility. I think the last major series to run there was the European Le Mans series. Before that moved to Monza, I think 3 seasons ago. So it'll be interesting to see how these beefy, big boats of F1 cars with mountains of torque and huge wheelbases handle this sort of circuit.
A quick bit of housekeeping to go on. Of course, these cars do have DRS available to them, but the track doesn't have a DRS zone, so there will not be any DRS used for anyone watching in this race. But anyone who might have caught the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last month might have noticed that you kind of don't need it in some cases, even on a track as dull as Abu Dhabi, there was still some decent overtaking, and it makes those overtaking moments when they happen more worthwhile when you see them take place.
Yeah, and to reference back to Abu Dhabi, at least that one's got those two very long straights to help out with that as well. And this run that we're just watching Ziras exit the Tosa hairpin now. These sort of runs through here, because the cars have got very high downforce. This run through the Piratella corner, that's going to be the places where the downforce is really going to come into effect. I love this sequence of corners at Aqua Minerale. I think that's my favourite section on the track. But hopefully we do see some good passing. These cars are all balanced to be about the same. Is that correct?
Performance, that's correct.
Yep. So it all is down to the drivers, even though they are running all separate liveries.
We see some of the faster drivers and some of the slower cars. Let's quickly take you through actually the who's in what car, as we've had some changes from 2001. Ziras is still in the Ferrari. That's the major change. He's been a major constant essentially throughout the series. He's been in Ferrari throughout the entire series. Behind him, Bad Apple's moved to the Toro Rosso after racing at BAR Honda. A bit of a Honda continuation there for Bad Apple. Can't see him at the moment there. Brenton Foley is in the Haas, the number 8, but we will see him out on track once he takes to qualifying. Sam Smith is in the number 7, the Toro Rosso,
the Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo. Toro Rosso incidentally becoming Alfa Tori, so that's going to be a bit of a confusion for us next year. Berto is in the Red Bull, Aston Martin Honda car there, and that's a continuation. He was in the Jaguar in the Formula 1 series, so that is actually the same car if you trace the lineage back. Madbird's in the Renault, the number 3, the Danny Rick car. We've got Nether, who has been in Williams and was going to drive the Williams and complete 4 rounds in the same team, but unfortunately we had a dropout. Tyrrell not able to make it tonight. He was going to drive the number 77 Mercedes there, and Nether graciously decided to drive the Mercedes so that we would have all teams represented tonight. In 8th place at the moment we've got Goofball. He's another guy, a constant driver in McLaren every single round. Fruity Ping is driving the Williams, and then Josh Bagsy is driving the Racing Point, which I will try not to call a Force India throughout the course of tonight.
You'll be doing about as good a job as those doing the official F1 comms then, because they made that mistake quite a few times throughout the year. But gorgeous looking car in that pink colour, isn't it?
It is. It's well, I like it when cars do something distinctive, and it's probably one of the issues that Formula E has. I think a lot of their cars are a bit hard to distinguish, but certainly not the case. We have a very colourful grid in Formula 1 at the moment, as the qualifying session looks set to get underway very, very shortly indeed.
Yes, so 15-minute qualifying. Expect to see everyone on the red marked tyre for this session. That's the Super Soft, I believe.
In the game, it's referred to as the Super Soft, but for the sake of 2019, the red marked tyre is the soft, so we're calling it the soft, the medium, and the hard, and that is the red, white, and yellow. As we see Bagsy there trying to jump to the front of the queue, that's a bit rude. But it doesn't look like it's going to get out in front of him. In fact, he's got so far up behind the safety car that he's had to reverse to get out of the...
Oof, don't want to reverse in the pit lane.
No, not legal.
So as the guys start their qualifying laps, or this qualifying session, it'd be good to take you through where the sector markers are. First sector runs from the start-finish line out to the entrance to the Tosa hairpin, then second sector runs from the Tosa hairpin to the exit of Aqua Minerale, and then the last sector is that run through Variante Alta, through Ravazza, and then that slingshot back onto the main straight. Lap times from practice were in around the 1:15 region, so a good 7 or 8 seconds quicker than what they were in the 2001 edition of the event. So hopefully we get to see a good battle for pole position here.
Yeah, Bad Apple setting some quick times in the practice session, and he's one of the drivers who's been on the march. He finished 3rd in his first race, 2nd in his second race. And if that trend continues, well, he may well be fighting for victory tonight, but he'll have to overcome the man on your screen right now, Ziras, who's been in absolutely dominant form lately after just clinching the DRM title. He has been more or less unbeatable in the 4 Decades of Imola, with the one blemish to his copybook being the 2nd place finish in the 1988 round, where Sam Smith got the better of him.
That was a very good race, that 1988 race. In fact, I very much enjoyed that one. What is the race format for this evening? Well, we've just got the cars on their first qualifying lap. Ziras using a lot of the curbs through that was the Villeneuve chicane, was it not?
Yes. Coming out of Tosa now, it's been a reasonable lap from him so far. We really are just seeing him set a benchmark. But to answer your question, we have to first talk about the format for qualifying. We're not having the knockout qualifying session as we don't really have enough runners to justify it.
Yep.
But they will have to carry the same compound of tyre that they set their fastest lap on through to the start of the race. So most of them have elected to do the red mark soft tyre. Seems pretty sensible from my point of view, and that's the compound that they are going to start the race on. Then they will have to make a pit stop in order to change to a different compound at some stage during the race, and that is in line with the real life Formula One, and so that will probably necessitate a pit stop for most of them in the first third of the race if they're starting on the softs, because we believe they last around about 10 laps, which is about 1/3 lap distance, 31 laps to do.
Fantastic. So we've got the first flying lap in. Ziras has clocked in a 1:16.2, and immediately behind him, Bad Apple goes to second with a 1:16.5. So that's a decent benchmark time. That's still around a second from the times, or 7/10 of a second from the times that we were seeing in practice. So we've still got a little ways to go yet, but looks like a tight competition for pole position, and Ziras has gone quicker again in the first sector, a 21.4 to start this second lap rather.
Yeah, so we'll see if Bad Apple can come anywhere near that. He hasn't managed to. He's 4/10 down through that first part of the lap. So let's watch. We'll see if Bad Apple can. Let's watch Ziras try and complete this lap.
Yeah, and he's 3/10 up on his previous lap time to the second sector, setting the fastest second sector to go along with his fastest first sector this time around. He rides the curbs very nicely, the first part of Rivazza, and then over the curbs again, just a little bit of a drop into the gravel, but nothing too serious as he sweeps around that finals corner and sets a 1:15.9, first lap in the 15s. Goes to Ziras, and he's immediately jumped into the box there after that lap.
So Bad Apple came close to matching that lap the first time around, but he's still 5/10 away from what Ziras has managed to do. So meanwhile, Berto's the second off the pace down there in third place.
And Berto's coming onto some lap traffic at the moment in the form of the McLaren driver, which is Goofball Antics. You might actually get a bit of a tow down the main straight here as we watch Bad Apple just go for a bit of a spin and make contact with the wall out of the Tosa hairpin. So he's thrown that one away. We're just catching it on replay now. He's just coming through the Variante Villeneuve. I'm going to try and do my best to get these corner names right. And so he's coming through the Tosa chicane, and just as he picked up the power on
and they'll do that to you. These have so much torque, the cars will snap away from you in very, very short order. So he's come a cropper from that. And he'll give you a lot of warning. Someone else off Berto on our other screen
did exactly the same thing, and we just saw it in the background of that shot of Ziras there. We'll watch it again. It's going to be a carbon copy. Very nice through Variante Villeneuve. Up to the Tosa hairpin, and then a wheel over, not even on the curb. It was as soon as he brought the throttle up, and it just looped around on him.
And he's still in the garage there trying to look at some of his settings. Ziras is back out onto the racetrack to have another go. And hi to Sue Smith, Sam Smith's mother, and the family watching along as always. Bit of an issue with the sound. Do let us know if I have increased, if I've fixed the issue at all. Sounds pretty good in my ears, but of course I'm not hearing what you're hearing, so do let us know if the audio continues to be an issue.
On the note of Sam Smith, he's actually improving on the first sector very nicely. Just ahead of his PB at the moment, just outside the 22s for Sam Smith, a 22 flat rather, as he comes through Aqua Minerale. We're still watching Ziras on stream.
Oh, that's
Oh, and actually Sam Smith's had a bit of an off.
He has, just as I looked at him, as you brought our attention towards him, here is that incident for Sam Smith.
So he got through Piratella quite nicely, used a bit of curve, and then through Aqua Minerale in that difficult braking zone, and again, it was just on the power, just bringing the power up, and the rear just got away from him.
Yeah, you got to treat these cars like they're going to spin at any opportunity. I think it's a bit of a cliche, but they say drive within yourself, leave a margin for error. It's something that Ziras has annoyed the rest of the Apex Rear Wing clan by telling them to do, as he's certainly found the limits of the car. He's within half a tenth, in fact, within 1/10 of a second of his personal best, which is already pretty decent at the moment. Purple middle sector with a 24.68.
Yeah, and at the moment, no one else is even close to him in that middle sector. A lot of other drivers are out in the 25s. So Ziras crosses the line again, betters his own PB.
Got a bit of a toe, I think, there from Bagsy.
Brilliant final sector, and it's surprising how much that toe is actually effective, because that last sector is basically flat out once you get out of Rivazza. It's very, very kind to you if you're behind another car, if you get them just right.
All right, Bad Apple coming to the line. Looks like he's had a bit of an off-track excursion on this particular lap, as there's grass all over his rear tyres. And he again goes consistently within his PB time, which is, to say it's only about a tenth or so away, but he's 9/10 away from Ziras with that lap, 8/10 with his best lap. So he's got a bit of work to do. Foley's actually jumped up into third place very, very recently indeed. So that's pretty good effort from him, the man who says that he doesn't like open-wheeled cars and very much the V8 fan. He's gone third, and good job from him.
Took home the V8 Supercars, Australian Supercars Automobilista Championship this season.
The Super 2, that's right, Automobilista Australia Super 2, which I think he was very much eyeing that off as his favourite. He and his friend Phil Boak did a lot of work organising that after they weren't going to run one this year, and thank goodness they did, because they got a lot of people involved who otherwise might not have got a chance to race supercars this year.
Yeah, I actually ended up calling that last round with Nether, who's currently sitting in 7th spot in this session, and that was at Oran Park we did that one at, the finale, so that was actually a very enthralling round. It was a lot more frantic than we were expecting. Amazing what the pressures of a championship will do to you.
Yeah, it's funny that. It's you can have the cleanest year, and then all of a sudden it comes down to that last round, and it all sort of falls apart a little bit. So we're watching Birdo, who appears to not be on a timed lap. Let's flick to Sam Smith, who's just started one, and he's fallen down the order a little bit of late. He's down to 5th place. He was as high as 3rd, I believe, at one stage, and he's been surpassed by Berto in the last few moments, and so now he's got a bit of time to find up.
Doing very well to the first sector mark though, 3/10 up in his PV, only 1/10 away from Ziras, but it is this middle sector where Ziras is finding all the time. So we'll see how Sam Smith goes as he dives down the hill from Piratella.
Piratella,
I'm getting there. Through Aqua Minerale and towards the second sector mark.
I've had 3 rounds of practice with these corner names.
Half a second up on his PB, only 3/10 away from Ziras. That is a very impressive lap.
So that'll put him third.
Oh no!
Oh, commentator's curse strikes again. That would have put him third, and we'll move swiftly on from that. What can Birdo do to try and protect his place as 4th? And he only needs to find 2/10 to jump up ahead of Brenton Foley into 3rd place. Bad Apple, meanwhile, has improved. He's now within 6/10. Oh, that's Birdo off. That is Birdo off the track. So as these guys try and start to find the limits of the cars, we're seeing some more spins. So Goofball Antics currently up on his PB, but he needs to find a bit more time than that, because 1.5 is only going to put him, well, going to keep him 6th essentially in that McLaren.
Using a lot of curb through Rivazza 1 and a lot less through Rivazza 2, hoping maybe to get the slingshot down this
Look
main
at his tyres. He's on the softs. He's on the mediums, I should say, the yellow mark tyre as well. So,
and he set his best lap. So this might be a strategy play from Goofball Antics to maybe run longer in that first stint during the race, because that is his best lap for this session, which means that he'll have to start the race on those tyres.
I like it. It's a good strategy. He keeps himself out of trouble, and he brings himself into play later in the race, when he'll be switching to the red-marked soft tyres, we should imagine, as he's elected not to continue that lap.
I think that lap elected not to continue with him.
So let's see if Nether can improve. He's another man who's doing this same strategy. In fact, we can see a few of the guys. Madbird on our other monitor is also doing the yellow-marked qualifying option. That's why we're seeing this big gap between Sam Smith and then Goofball Antics. Nether's improved to 7th with that lap as Goofball Antics ventures out onto the racetrack again. And on our other screen, we've got Birdo and Nether exiting the pit lane, line astern. In fact, Birdo looks like he's going to pull over and let Nether by. No, he's making a liar of me almost instantaneously. So, two different schools of thought with this qualifying session as to what they're going to do. And already, I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. I thought they'd all do their lap times on soft, but this is going to create some mixed bag strategies in the race itself.
Yeah, well, I guess if you want to have a shot at winning and you're not the fastest guy on track, you got to do something different. So the likes of Goofball Antics, NetherRealmian, they're trying something different.
Mad Bird.
And Mad Bird as well. It might play into their hands later on in this evening.
The other very interesting thing from my point of view is that the Renault has yellow marked tyres, and that's very pleasing to me. It's like when the Ferrari has the soft marked tyres on, the red marked tyres. We can see it on screen. Now, I think Ziras might have packed up for the day. He's in the garage.
Well, he does still have a 6/10 lead over Bad Apple, who's just outside his PB on this lap as we catch him coming through Variante Alta down into the final sector. So there's 6/10 that Bad Apple has to find in order to oust Ziras from that pole position. So at this stage, as he has just a little bit of a lock up into Ravazzi 1 and through Ravazzi 2, it's not quite looking like he's going to be able to bridge the gap. Let's see what sort of time he puts in here. And it's a 16.4, so still not improving as we've got the other Red Bull in the background. That is Berto, and he did not set a time that lap.
Now he's dropped to 5th actually. Sam Smith has improved his position by 1, so he looked like he was going to a few times and then just spun off, but he's managed to cobble a lap together, and there's a bit of a rivalry between those two, Berto and Sam Smith. They actually won a race together as the team that took out the 6 hours of the Spa-Francorchamps. That was Berto's first race as Apex Rear Wing, and throughout the Caterham series they were very closely matched for pace. And yeah, although some days Berto's unbeatable and some days Sam Smith's unbeatable, every now and then you see them battling each other very, very hard indeed.
Fantastic. You love it when you find someone who's got, in sim racing, just that same skill level as you, because that way it really pushes you on to become a little better. So I hope it's a friendly rivalry between
I think
Berto
it is,
and
yeah.
Sam Smith.
I believe it is. I think Berto certainly with the DRM series helped Sam Smith a lot. He's pretty good at setting up a car, and Sam Smith's pretty good at hanging it all out with a car. He might not necessarily be the man to set up a car, but if someone sets up a car for him, like Berto, then Sam Smith is unbeatable, and he certainly was during some of those DRM races. Or Berto off.
Oh, very off through Tamburello.
Brenton Foley has gone 2nd.
Yeah, I was just watching him on the other monitor while we've got him on now. His last lap, a 16.2, very, very strong first and middle sector as we hit the time limit for this session. So he's jumped up quite a bit, and he's on fire this lap as well. A 10th down on the pole time from Ziras, so this could be potentially a pole winning time at the very death of the session here as he comes through Piratella into Aqua Minerale.
We weren't expecting this. Brenton Foley on an absolute tear. Let's hope he can keep it together and finish this very, very competitive lap in the Haas. He's dropped the 10th through the middle sector, but he's up on his PB by 1/4 of a second. If he has a very, very strong final sector to this lap, he may well just put Ziras' very, very strong provisional pole time under threat. Down to the Ravazza, down the hill, hard on the brakes, using all the curb on the inside. Looks pretty good to me. Absolutely flowing the car through the very, very fast left-hander onto the start-finish straight towards the line. Is it pole position for Brenton Foley? Oh, not quite.
Not quite in the end. 2.235 away, and that is the end of the session. He was actually the only other driver to make it into the 15s, Brenton Foley, but it is Ziras who is our pole winner for this 2019 edition of the 4 Decades of Imola.
Yeah, I think that Ziras might not have been expecting anyone to get quite as close to his lap as Bretton Foley did, because Ziras had parked up in the pit lane with 3 minutes left in the session saying, beat that. And I'm sure he thought Bad Apple would be the man to do it, if anyone. In the end, it was Bretton Foley who came oh so close.
Yeah, and it was kept us interested until the very end of the session, didn't it?
Certainly did.
Yeah, so the final qualifying order is Ziras on pole position. Second place will be Brenton Foley in the Haas analog. Bad Apple will come from third, then Sam Smith and Berto. Goofball Antics, the first of the drivers on the medium compound tyre in the McLaren. Then it will be Netherrealmian, Josh Bagsy, Madbird and Fruity Ping in the Williams, rounding out the entrance that we have for this evening.
So that's the end of qualifying, so we'll move swiftly on from that into the warm-up session, and this is an opportunity for the cars to have practice start and practice pit in, all those sorts of things that you weren't really thinking about prior to the beginning of the qualifying session.
And we saw some problems with the pit in last round, didn't we, Stairs? One or two drivers getting pinged for drive-through penalties for pit lane entry speed.
Yes, that was Goofball Antics. It happened to him twice, in fact, and afterwards saying, what a stupid place for a pit lane entry. Now, the pit lane entry is actually quite different with the removal of the chicane at the end of the corner, at the end of the race. So I'm not actually sure. I haven't... Maybe we'll see if we can find an onboard of someone diving into the pits during this warm-up session. We might be able to catch a glimpse of where that pit lane speed limit line is.
Yeah, the major difference now is that unlike what it was in 2001, because that entire area has been has had its speed very much increased because of the removal of the bus stop chicane, you're actually entering the pit lane through a slip lane, similar to, say, Fuji, or what's another track? Maybe even Suzuka in the F1, where you have a sort of slip lane off of the circuit that brings you into the pits. So it's less like Montreal, as we have a great view of the halo there on Sam Smith's Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, fair to say the drivers have a bit of a lower cockpit view than what we just saw there. With the TCAM a bit more, a bit of a better vantage point than what the drivers have. You can see that slip lane there off to the right that Michael is talking about, and so likely with the racetrack now being a modern spec racetrack, you should see the pit lane speed limit line is a bit easier to see than it was in the 2001 iteration of the racetrack.
Indeed, hope so. We don't want to see this race decided by drive-through penalties. That's never the ideal. So we've got the cars gridding up for a practice start here. Are they actually trying to choose their actual positions?
Yeah, well, they didn't quite. I think Birdo's been left in the lurch there. Actually, someone's taken his spot. I think it's when he qualified fourth. I think he qualified fifth. So now there's taken his spot there in the Mercedes. The first, the top four are as they qualified at least, and Sam Smith will get not Sam Smith. Birdo will get a look in from 8th place, so he will start a little bit further up when the actual race start gets underway. As we see no one spin, that's pretty good. That's what we want to see, or what the drivers certainly want to see. Oof. Oh, never mind.
There it goes.
Sam Smith has got a bit of a punt in the back there, so picking their braking point for Tamburello, that's going to be an important factor.
Well, this is why we do practice starts, right?
Exactly.
This is why we have the warm-up session. This is why we do the practice starts. It looked like everyone got off the line fairly nicely.
Yep. And that can be hard in these cars. So much torque they have.
Exactly, and no traction control or launch control compared to the 2001 cars, so much harder to walk off the line. But everyone seemed to get away very, very nicely that time around. Hopefully for the race that we have, it'll be the same.
Yeah, they do move the percentage of damage in these servers down a little bit with cars like these. So we're at 50% server damage, so still enough that a decent accident will ruin your race, but it won't completely put you out if you lose just a tiny little bit of your front wing or anything like that. So
yeah, well, we did see in practice a few drivers losing wheels and losing tyres, and that would put pay to your race. We watched Berto have a little bit of a moment through Rivazza. So you still have to be careful. It's not like you can just bash into each other and walk out the other side.
That's right. So Berto might get a chance to start from where he's actually qualified this time, because he got to the grid before all of those cars who got involved in shenanigans. I have no idea what Bagsy's doing. I'm wondering if he's actually come out of the pit lane and then reversed back to his grid, which, if that is the case, I'm surprised he hasn't been disqualified for such an indiscretion. We've got Madbird attempting a pit lane start. In fact, he's gone beyond the line at the exit of the pit lane. He's just sort of gone to the end of the pit lane and a little bit further. As we see another practice start, a lot of wheel spin from everyone, essentially, coming off the line there.
Let's hope that they pick a better braking marker this time. People seem to have gotten through all right this time around and no major incidents.
Yeah, it's one of those times where if you haven't been following any of the other guys during the practice session, you've got no idea actually where they're, what sort of pace they're actually on. As we see, Fruity Pings just had a spin at the Villeneuve chicane. I think he had a bit of help there.
Potentially. And it would be interesting as well, because I'm guessing a lot of these guys... Oh, he actually didn't. He just went off by himself.
Yeah, Nether went off by himself in front of him as well.
Yeah. And I'm assuming a lot of these guys would be fans of Formula One already, right? So it might be a bit different for them seeing cars of different teams and different liveries at the head of the field. So, for example, you might not expect to see a Williams in front of you once you come out, come onto the starting grid. So it might be, it's a good chance to sort of see where everyone's pace is at and get used to the cars around you in this warm-up session. We've got 4 minutes left before we move on to the race.
To answer your question, yes, this group sort of started from playing Codemasters F1 games, but since moving to a more simulated versions of such as Stock Car Extreme and moving on to Automobilista, we've developed a bit more of just a racing fan sort of member. Quite a few of the guys are supercars. Sam Smith is a huge fan of vintage cars, and
nice.
You'll see him at the Phillip Island Historics, I'm sure, next year, as I think he goes every year, and loves those old cars. But yes, you get a bit of an eclectic fan of motorsports in recent years in Apex Rear Wing, and just seeing a bit of chatter in the live chat. Hello to Rhodey's Racing, saying, is that Mr. Zalavari? Indeed it is.
Hello, Rhodey.
Joining us, was very gracious in joining us after Matt Dunlop wasn't able to finish. Huge shame for him, because he's been here for the first 3 rounds, but how lucky are we that we're able to have someone like you be able to slot in and fill in at less than a week's notice.
Oh, that's very flattering. Thank you, Stairs. I very much enjoy doing this as well. So it makes it very enjoyable for me to come along and use your how many we've got today? We've got 8 screens. 8 screens.
Where are you counting? I mean, we've got 4 right here, 2 to the right, 1 to the left. That's 7. Yeah, 8. I suppose you could count the phone.
Could call it 8 screens. Yeah. So it's an enjoyable experience for me to come through and to do this as well, and I'm very happy to fill in. I guess thank you to Matt Dunlop for having a break this week and allowing me to have a go.
Yes, I'm sure he's very disappointed he wasn't able to come, but he may join us later for a quick wrap-up of the year, because it is our last race of the year, last race of the 4 Decades of Imola, and last race for 2019. We're looking forward to a very big next year in 2020 as well.
So what have you got on the cards for next year, Stairs, in terms of Apex Rear Wing?
Good question. A lot of races that I'm sure we haven't even begun to think about. There will be, of course, season 9 of the Apex Rear Wing, our regular series, which will be in cars to be decided. The last one was in DRMs. I think that there'll be some weeks where the guys just decide to practice in different cars until they pick something, essentially. But the one that is a lock-in, I can't recall the date just yet, but it will be in the month of March. I think the 3rd weekend we'll be having the the Group C endurance race,
Ooh,
which
nice.
is something that I'm very much looking forward to, and I think a lot of people do look forward to that one.
Yeah, so as we just have the last few minutes of warm-up, if you want to follow along with live timing with us tonight, the URL is arwleague@.liveraces.com. Otherwise, make sure you're supporting Apex Reviewing on Facebook and on Patreon as well.
Yes, and always looking to grow our followers on Facebook, and hoping for some more Patreons. Certainly, any little bit helps us to continue doing what we're doing and trying to improve the show week on, week in, week out. So 15 seconds remaining in this warm-up session, and Ziras has decided to bugger the practice starts. He's going to just try and do a bit of hot lapping there, and although that doesn't look like a particularly quick lap time to me. But it is faster than Bad Apple, so nonetheless he is at the top of the timesheets.
We still haven't yet seen someone use the pit entry, so we're not quite sure how that looks from a...
Everyone's exited out.
Yeah. We got Madbird on track as well somewhere. Nether on track. Madbird's just
Who's closest? Let's see if anyone will appease us. It is actually just Nether and Ziras by the looks of it on the racetrack. So one of those will have to do it if they get a chance to. The timer has hit 0, so they might not be able to, and no, it's not going to happen. So the first time we'll see someone enter the pit lane will be in the race itself. So does that bode badly?
Ooh, I hope not. I hope we don't see a repeat of what happened to Goofball Antics last round, where we saw him get a drive-through penalty for his drive-through penalty.
Essentially, that was what happened.
So we're just trying to actually find it now. I think I've caught it on our other screen. It is the pit entry line is marked by cones this time around, so it should be a little easier for our drivers to make sure that they're abiding by the rules and by the speed limit as we start to see the drivers come out onto the grid.
So this is for the race, folks. And we'll just get everything set up for that, and we're going to very, very shortly get underway with our warm-up lap. But there's a bit of silence now. You can barely hear these cars ticking over, the V8 hybrids, V6 hybrids, I should say.
V8 hybrid, I'd love that. Sounds like something out of sports cars.
And the reason we can't hear them is because I've got the audio actually unticked for those, so let me just fix that. There you go. Now you can hear the V6 hybrids. Now, taking you through the grid, Ziras will lead away from pole position with Brenton Foley occupying the front row alongside him. Bad Apple for Toro Rosso is in 3rd place and looking for his 3rd podium on the bounce, with Sam Smith in 4th place. Birdo for Aston Martin Red Bull Racing is in 5th place, ahead of Goofball Antics, who's the first runner of the medium yellow stripe tyres, ahead of Nether doing exactly the same thing with his strategy. Josh Bagsy is starting on soft tyres, so he has no such luck. Watch out for him on the start, he'll be a bit quicker than those in front of him. Madbird also on the softs in 9th place, ahead of Fruity Bing in the Rocket Williams.
Okay, I haven't been following F1 much this season, but is that every team on the grid? There isn't a team missing, is there?
That's all 10 teams, that's
all
right.
10 teams.
All 10 teams represented, and unfortunately there are only 10 teams in Formula 1. There have been more, there's many more in certain years, but at the moment 10 is all it is.
Very colourful grid as well, which is nice to see. We've got reds, blacks, blues, purples, pinks even. I do love the pink Racing Point livery. I think that's one of the highlights of the Formula One grid at the moment. But a very wide variety of colours makes it very easy to identify each car, which makes me very happy. Makes it a lot easier.
So they're just trying to find their way onto the start-finish grid right now. So there's a bit of brake warming going on. It's a little bit late really if they've left it to this very late stage in the piece, but every little bit helps when they go into Tamburello, and we saw a bit of a bit of nonsense there in the warm-up session.
Fingers crossed we see a bit of a cleaner start this time around for the race. 31 laps of the 2019 Imola circuit, and we are only just moments away from the start.
So there is a calm over the racetrack. For the final round of the 4 Decades of Imola, the lights are on, and we are racing. So, pretty clean start so far. Everyone's off the line fairly well. It's pretty even, in fact, between Ziras and Brenton Foley, who looks like he may well sweep through, but he has to yield, and it's Ziras in the lead. Behind them, everyone has made it through so far cleanly through Tamburello on lap 1.
Bad Apple actually got the best start of the bunch as they filed through the Variante Villeneuve, but he got boxed out, and Foley's actually run wide there around the exit of Variante Villeneuve, and so through the Tosa hairpin they go now, and Bad Apple riding around the outside. He's not quite been able to get the power down quickly enough, and Foley swoops across the front to take back that second place, but immediately that leaves Ziras out in front with over a second already as they come through to Acqua Minerale.
Yeah, that is a big boon for Ziras, and Sam Smith as well, looking like he was putting Bad Apple under a little bit of pressure. In fact, Brenton Foley has just stretched away from Bad Apple, a few sloppy corners from him. Meanwhile, back behind them, we've got Goofball Antics and Berto getting involved in a little bit of a stoush. And we had one of the cars off. We've got Josh Bagsy down there in 10th, is actually off the racetrack as well on our other monitor. And Nether is putting Goofball Antics under pressure. So it's interesting to see that some of the guys further down the field who had the red marked tyres didn't get the best start, so it's looking pretty good actually for those on the medium tyres.
Yeah, Goofball Antics actually got around Berto and Tamburello, but wasn't able to hold it as they went through the lap. Bagsy unfortunately had to shortcut the Variante Alto, got his braking all wrong there, and was lucky not to make contact with anything, so he's dropped to the tail of the field. But at the moment it is Ziras streaking away a second quicker on that opening lap, and he's built up a sizable advantage over Brenton Foley as they go through Tosa hairpin. You can just see Foley in the background and then Bad Apple behind him. So the top 3 have already stepped away from the rest of the field, and everyone's already found a little bit of their own space. That didn't take them very long, did it?
Yeah, these cars do spread out fairly quickly indeed. We'll wait to see whether the straight from the Rivazza to the Tamburello corner creates some tight slipstreaming. But as it stands, Ziras has pulled out to a second, and he doesn't have to protect from a DRS zone activation point, because there will be no DRS in this race as the circuit doesn't actually allow for it. Now, seeing some side-by-side action on our other screen there. I was just maybe seeing it between Sam Smith and Berto maybe,
yes,
closing in.
Berto's actually made that position in the straight beyond Variante Altos. They come through to start lap 3. We're just catching a replay now. So what happened to Sam Smith here? All right through, he kicked the curb very hard at Variante Alto, and then that was enough for Berto to swoop around the outside into Rivazza rather.
Yeah, it didn't take much, and most of the incident there for Sam Smith kind of happened off camera, but we saw the start of him losing rear traction, and it just took him an age to get back on the power. Goofball Antics going wide there through the Villeneuve chicane onto the gravel, losing a bit of time. But Sam Smith isn't particularly well placed strategically, being caught in the middle of the soft tyre battle. Sorry, the medium tyre battle with the yellow marked tyres as he's on the softs.
Yeah, he's got Berto ahead of him, who is also on the softs, but being the last runner on the soft tyre is definitely not the ideal place to be. And in fact, he was ahead of Berto.
Oh, spin for Brenton Foley. He was closing down Ziras, and he was in second place, and he was challenging for the lead, but it's all fallen apart for Brenton Foley.
He's going to lose more positions as well, as he has lost a lot of pace coming out of that chicane, and that has let Ziras off the hook a little bit as we're trying to scroll back to find our replay on the other screen. And he's now in 6th place, which actually puts him behind Goofball Antics on the medium tyres. So he's lost a lot of strategy equity from that as well.
Here's the replay of Brenton Foley. It was the same place we saw Sam Smith lose it not very long ago, on the exit of the chicane there at the Variante Alta. And unfortunately, very easy to make. The only saving grace from Brenton Foley's point of view is that he didn't hit the wall, so there is no damage.
Yeah, that's very lucky for him to get away with no damage there. We've seen a lot of drivers make that mistake, not necessarily at that chicane, but also out of the Tosa hairpin, which we've just gone through now for Brenton Foley. Very easy in these cars to pick up the throttle and have the car just rotate on you with all that torque, that low end torque with the hybrid. And he's run wide through Acqua Minerale again, so not the best start to this race from Brenton Foley after a surprise second place in qualifying.
Well, we know that he likes to feel the car under him, and he drives the cars to the limit. And unfortunately, these cars really don't lend themselves to that. We've got an off in Fruity Ping, in fact. Looks like he's had a big accident. In fact, we've also got recently one of the Renaults, well, the only Renault, Madbird, has been off the racetrack, so we've got a lot to catch up on. So we can see Fruity Ping there now recovering to the pits, it looks like, and that is missing its nose.
Missing its nose and missing a few other things as well.
And he was close to Madbird on track, so I'm wondering if they've had a coming together. We're just trying to dig through the tape to see if we can find a replay. No, I believe it happened independently for Fruity Ping. Here is the replay. Was it the chicane again? No, it was on the exit of Acqua Minerale, actually. It looks like he got past the dangerous point. It was on the switch over the hill, straight into the wall it fed in. That was a bizarre incident there for
Well, we saw
him.
Sam Smith do something similar in qualifying as well. So, yeah, it's not completely unheard of, but he's been forced to make a pit stop. Another one in the pits is Bagsy, just behind Fruity Ping. And now we've actually got a battle between 4th and 5th on the road, Groupolantics and the recovering Brenton Foley. They've been pretty close the last few laps, only separated by about half a second at this stage. Groupolantics should have the longevity in his tyres. We see Ziras set a 17.6 to set the fastest lap. But here now Foley has the slipstreams. They come down the main straight. He's got the inside line as well. So this should be a very easy move for Foley to make as they come through the first section of the track. But Goofball isn't giving it away. They're going side by side into Tamburello. And it is Foley who prevails in the end. Goofball having to cede that position and getting compromised through the Tamburello chicane and losing that position.
The Williams is finally on the move. While that battle was going on, Fruity Ping was stationary in the pit lane getting that damage repaired. So what a terrible shame for Fruity Ping in that Williams. Meanwhile, I think Goofball Antics is happy to just sit in the wheel tracks of Brenton Foley. They're on completely different strategies, so it isn't particularly anything to worry about from Goofball Antics' point of view, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, this is true. He's going to be running a lot longer than Brenton Foley, so he should be able to recover that position. And we had Foley off again! Foley off again, just through Acqua Minerale.
What happened there? Replay.
We just saw him on that overhead shot backwards in the wall. So he's come through Piratella very nicely into Acqua Minerale.
Yeah, that was almost the same as Fruity Ping's accident. He got away with it, I think. There will be a bit of damage, but it wasn't a heavy hit. It was just a glancing blow with the rear of the car. So he will continue, but he's had a few moments on those tyres now, and they're getting towards the end of their life, probably 2/3 through the stint.
Well, he's now dropped down to 7th, so that's a far cry from where he started this race in 2nd position.
This is going very similarly to the race that he had, I think, in the either the 1988 cars or the 1975 cars, where he qualified well. He was fighting even for the lead at one stage, but then kept making mistakes and got away from him.
Well, these are very easy cars to make mistakes in. They're certainly not as planted to the ground as, say, the 2001 cars were with their traction control and electronic assistance. These cars are brutes and boats, you called them last time around. So they're very much a lot more physical in terms of a driving style, and you've got to be a lot more careful with them.
I do love to drive them though. They are quite rewarding when you get the lap time out of them. You can just throw them into the corners because they do have so much downforce. It's just you've got to treat that throttle pedal like there is an egg underneath it, and you just want to squeeze it, but you don't want to squeeze it too hard that the shell breaks. So that is where you've got to treat them kindly. But then you can absolutely monster them through these high-speed corners, and this racetrack has a few of them, and Ziras is the one who seems to be equal to the task at the moment. He has a 2.7 second lead 2.4 second lead over Bad Apple, currently in second place, having another quiet race. He's had a few quiet races with us so far, and he'll be starting to believe that no one is really at his pace level. Ziras is too quick and everyone else is too slow. I'm sure that in the future he will have some very, very fierce battles with the drivers in Apex Rear Wing.
Not a bad start to his Apex Rear Wing career, is it? A third place and a second last round, and potentially on for another podium here. Touch wood. Don't want to put the mocker on him this early in the race, as we are only 7 laps in, but you know, he's a very, very skilled driver, obviously, and he looks like he's able to at least put pressure on those at the head of the field.
Absolutely, he's there if Ziras makes any mistakes. So we're just trying to see if anyone's dipping into the pits. We've had someone off, Madbird off, and we'll catch a replay if we can find one. But it looks like Madbird's out of the race, so he has collided with his rear wing into the wall, I believe. Foley on our other screen is currently doing pirouettes.
That was a very high speed off at Piratella for Madbird. Look at that. In the mid corner, so that was a rear end lose under high load at downforce. So
lost the front end and the rear end of his car. Unfortunately, that is the end for Madbird, and it may well be the end for Brenton Foley. This time he's got damage. He's lost the front wing of his car, and that is a sorry-looking Haas, or Haas, I should say.
Oh, the way that came out was not. I was not expecting that, as Foley comes into the pits, and we can see there that is where the pit.
Yes, that's the important factor here.
Yes. So whereabouts? Because he actually had 2 spins
after recovery. Well, he's currently getting that damage fixed, but let's check the replay now for Brenton Foley. So this was what was happening while we were watching the replay of Madbird's exit from the race. He just got his car righted and then had another lose, and that is where you have to be so careful. That's what I'm talking about with the eggshell thing. It was an innocuous little lose. Front on, he won't have any suspension damage, I should think, from that, because of the frontal impact.
We've lost Sam
Smith
as well.
has exited the race as well. So it's all happening. It's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. So why is Sam Smith out of the race? That is a good question. Alistair, let's have a quick look at the replay.
He's already out at that point.
He is already out, so we're watching Brenton Foley rejoin the race while we try and find the replay for Sam Smith. So I'm wondering if it was a connection issue for Sam Smith.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, that's bitterly disappointing.
Real shame from Sam Smith, who was having a decent race up in 4th, was in a battle with Berto, and that's a real sad way to end your 2019 season.
What that means is that Ziras is the 4 Decades of Imola champion, albeit only 10 laps into the final race, but he has clinched it because Sam Smith was the only man who could take it from him, and Sam needed to win that race with Ziras finishing fairly low down the order. So commiserations to Sam Smith, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
That is motorsport indeed. So we've now down to 8 entrants, or 8 runners in this 2019 edition of the 4 Decades of Imola. So at the moment, Ziras leads the way. He's 3.5-ish seconds ahead of second place. Oops. Ooh, what did I do there?
What did you press?
I pressed the plus button. There we go. Sorry, I pressed something bad there.
I don't know what you did. I looked at the screen and
something was up. Second place is Bad Apple. He is 3.5 seconds away from the lead of the race. 8 seconds ahead of Berto.
It's back. There we go.
We did it. Berto in 3rd. He's running a bit of a lonely race now without that pressure from Sam Smith. And then it is Goofball Antics, the first runner on the medium tyres, then Nether Albion rounding out the top 5. Bagsy is a lap down in 6th place, as is Foley and Fruity Ping, and that is your 8 runners remaining in this race.
Yeah, a lot of points on offer for those who finish, with points actually going down to 15th place with this series, as we're using the MotoGP point system, don't ask me why. But that is the case, and so 8th place gets a handy chunk of points. So even if you are last in this race, there is a lot on offer. Now Ziras has gone a lot further into this race on those soft tyres than I was expecting him to be able to do.
Well, it's not just Ziras either. It's Ziras, it's Bad Apple, it's Berto. In fact, even Bagsy has made a pit stop, so he's likely changed to run 2 stops potentially.
And Brenton Foley probably doing the same. He switched to the medium tyres as well. But those not on a different strategy as a result of the accidents that they've had. That would be a bit different for them. Goofball Antics is having a quiet race. He's only 4 points adrift from Birdo, who's on a different strategy. So that could be a battle that closes up towards the back end of this race once they switch over to the tyre that each other is on.
Yeah, and at the moment we're just beginning to see the crossover point for the lap time. So Goofball Antic last lap around was a 1:18.9, and Ziras, the race leader last lap around, was a 1:19.1. So we are at that changeover point, at least for the first runner on each tyre. And in response, Ziras is back into the 18s with an 18.9. So we are just at the bridging point where the soft tyres are starting to lose time to the mediums. So those first pit stops, if people are paying attention, might not be too far away for the runners on the soft tyre.
Good news also for those who are going to switch to the soft tyre, that they are able to go so much further into the race than we were expecting. We're nearly at the halfway point, and Ziras hasn't changed yet, and he's still doing pretty decent times. So if you're Goofball Antics, that's good news for you, because it means that you minimise the time where you are on the old tyre with the softs, because you can pit earlier, and then the undercut from those who've pit before, like Birdo, won't be as effective because there's less laps to do it.
Yeah, so you can run it either 2 ways. You can either come in early and try and gain track position, which in a downforce moderated class like Formula 1 is always paramount, or you could, as you said, pit in later and keep those tyres very healthy until the end of the race.
Well, here we go. The race leader, Ziras, is in the pit lane. So are we going to see Bad Apple follow? Bad Apple's actually stayed out this lap, so he's not coming in response to Ziras' pit stop. And Berto as well has decided to stay. So Ziras is the first to pit, and no one else has come in on this lap.
And this is going to be a very telling moment. We're actually just watching Goofball Antics pass Ziras in the pits. So I was almost expecting them to be closer on exit, but it looks like the pit delta with this modern Imola is actually quite a long distance, or quite a long time. So he's lost 17 seconds at the tail end of that previous lap coming into the pits, and we'll see his first sector time for Ziras as he comes around through to Variante Villeneuve, as we're still watching Goofball Antics now in 3rd position. And it's going to be a 32-second first sector. So that's a total of about 30 seconds that you lose taking that pit stop as your pit delta.
Yeah, so it must be a slow pit lane speed limit causing that in stark contrast to the 2001 pit lane speed limit, which I believe was 80 kilometres an hour. Our confirmation coming through on our live chat, Sam Smith, internet dropped out, so huge shame for Sam Smith. It's a very, very ugly way to be put out of the championship fight, as we are now seeing Bad Apple in the pit lane.
So Bad Apple, he was about 3.5 seconds behind Ziras prior to the pits. We've also got Berto in the pit lane, just on the second screen, and Bad Apple was already on his way. Of course, the pit stops here are not going to take that long at all,
just tyres.
The fuel is no longer a factor in the 2019 season, and so I'm going to have a look to see if I can find Ziras, and Ziras is already through. Ziras is well gone, as you can just see Bad Apple exiting the pits now.
So big undercut there for Ziras, and his tyres are only 1 or 2 laps younger, in fact older I should say, as Berto's now exiting the pit lane. And one issue that Ziras did have in previous racing this sort of era of Formula 1 car is that he would forget to change to a different compound of tyre. He has changed to the correct compound with the medium yellow marked tyres after starting on the reds. So he has fulfilled that part of the requirement and he won't be disqualified for using the wrong tyre.
So that gap now between Ziras and Bad Apple is around 6 seconds on the track at the moment. In fact, it's longer. It's about 7 seconds between the two. I did notice that Ziras had a faster final sector on his in-lap by the tune to about 2 seconds, but that doesn't quite explain the vast difference between between Ziras and Bad Apple. Maybe that tyre for Bad Apple just went off a cliff on that final lap.
Could be. We wait to see what happens when Goofball Antics comes into the pit lane. He still leads, of course. He's got an 8-second advantage by virtue of starting on the medium yellow marked tyre and having not made his pit stop yet. And we probably won't see him on the end of this lap. It might be a bit brave to expect the soft to last as long as that. But perhaps the lap after that, he could start to pull the trigger. But this is the point where those behind him that he's fighting, such as Berto and Nether, are going to have a bit of an advantage. In fact, Nether's on the same strategy as him, I beg your pardon. So it's Berto really that is his main rival in this strategic battle. So Berto's got the benefit of those fresh medium tyres at the moment. Goofball Antics is on very, very worn rubber.
And the lap time already difference between the two of them. Goofball Antics a 19.4 last lap around versus Ziras, for example, on an 18.8. So already the new tyres are worth about half a second of lap time. So we can see Goofball sliding it out of the Ravazza corner onto the main straight. So yeah, the tyre wear is definitely a factor to consider, and it's amazing how long the softs actually lasted. We're only just at half race distance now as Goofball Antics goes into the Tamburello chicane, and we've seen the soft tyres last until lap 13 or 14, which almost half race distance. We've got a yellow flag around this section of the track, and it looked like there was a car well off in the gravel there. Who was that? It was Bagsy, I think, out of 8th place. So in the racing point,
Bagsy's currently on the infield of the track, I think.
He's on the exit of Villeneuve. There he is.
What's happened there? We'll have to go back and find the replay of what's happened to Bagsy. That's a good spot there, because I certainly didn't see that. Here is a replay of when he still had his front wing.
Oh,
what happened there? Was that a deliberate accident?
It looks like he took way too much speed into the first part of Variante Villeneuve.
I think he's decided that's it for him today.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I'd say so.
Deary me. So he's ripped off the front of his car, and that is all she wrote for Bagsy. So no extra points for him. Goofball Antics has continued around on his merry way one more time. And so has Nether, still on his yellow marked medium tyres that he started the race on.
Yeah, so the mediums are now out in the 1 minute 20 range. Goofball Antics is 20 flat, a Netherelmian on a 20.4, whereas the new mediums are in the low 19s for Ziras. Bad Apple, a bit of a slower middle sector last lap around, a 19.8 for him, and Berto a 19.5. So there's still quite a bit of lap time discrepancy between the two tyres at this stage. Now, of course, as the race goes on, those mediums are going to stay at around that pace for those guys who have made that pit stop. But the soft tyres, for the likes of Goofball Antics and Netherelmian, as if they jump onto the soft tyres late in the race, they're going to have that immediate yield of that very good lap time. I think the fastest lap of the race we saw at a 17.6.
That should be a dramatic difference compared to what we're seeing now, which is, I mean, it's a second. That is dramatic at this point, but yeah, it'll fling in the other direction as Goofball Antics now pits, and I'm sure we'll see Nether on this lap. He's got some bad flat spots on those tyres after locking up at Tosa. So Goofball Antics comes in the pits, and I expect Berto will have stretched his lead, but that will come back towards Goofball Antics with the benefit of those soft tyres, I expect. Goofball Antics is now on the move, and Where is Berto? Berto's just coming across the start-finish line now, and Goofball Antics is a long way from the pit exit, so Berto is going to gain all of this time. And there he rejoins. So Goofball Antics has the carrot dangled in front of him. He will be able to see Berto right up ahead of him, at least when he gets to it.
There he is.
It is a racetrack which has a long enough straight, so that is the target for Goofball Antics now.
And he's actually going to be helped by Nether. Nether hasn't gone through the pits yet.
He didn't. I was expecting him to, but he didn't.
Yeah, so this is actually going to be hurting Berto in terms of pure lap speed as he tracks the Mercedes of Netherromian.
Oh, no. Oh,
that's
no.
everyone.
That's everyone. I think that's us. No, it's come back. Brief internet hitch. Let's touch wood that it stays brief. Because I was looking forward to that, and I'm still looking forward to it because it's still right in front of me. Berto, he's got much fresher tyres than Nether. I'm surprised that he didn't just sneak up the inside there at the chicane. But of course, I'm not in the car, and I would expect Nether to come in at the end of this lap because his tyres are done.
Yeah, Nether very smartly gets out of the way there, I think. Just sort of sidesteps him and lets Berto go through. But that's absolutely murdered the gap that Berto had over Goofball Antics, and Nether does come in this lap around. So now that gap between Goofball and Berto is only around 3 seconds. Not even that. It's only 2 seconds. So that's a much smaller gap than what it was just 1 lap ago, and that's mostly because of Berto having to fight to get past Nether that lap around. So this is very willing for the final place on the podium. Further afield, Bad Apple is about 11 seconds up the road, so it would have to be Goofball would need a little bit of help to catch onto the tail of Bad Apple, and then Ziras is a further 9 seconds up from that. But this battle for third is going to be the one to watch as we have around 11 laps remaining in the 4 Decades of Imola 2019 edition.
Just having a couple of technical issues with our second camera at the moment, which we aim to fix as properly as we possibly can. But Goofball Antics, well, put a bookmark on that one. 1.7 seconds. How quickly is that going to come down, do you reckon?
Not. He's got all the time in the world, really. As just on our second screen, we see Foley having another off at Variante Alta. It's there we.
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay. We still got that frozen on that screen, so
yeah,
we'll try and fix that one up for you.
It's not wanting to behave itself. Oh no, we got it.
There we go.
There it is. So we can see a replay. So funny, I think it's the exit of that chicane again.
Yep, Variante Alto yet again. Claimed a few victims today, which is a bit surprising.
Yeah, that curb. Different texture on that curb, different amount of traction on the curb than to the racetrack itself, and it's bitten him. But if we look at the, oh goodness, we cut back and he's having another incident. So
oh, and that one's much more serious. That one looked like it was at Piratella as well.
Well, that's where we saw Madberg go off, and that was a very, very heavy crash for him. And I reckon Bretton Foley's dulled it there. I can't hear the engine going. He's a lap ahead of Fruity Ping, so he's not going to lose any positions if he can get it going in the next few moments. But I think that is all she wrote for Brenton Foley, so what a shame. Meanwhile, this battle for the final spot on the podium is hotting up.
Yeah, so Goofball Antics has taken 3/4 of a second out of Berto this lap alone, and it's not even at the end of the lap. You can already see Berto squirming on those medium tyres out of Rivasa. Coming down the main straight now, it shouldn't take long, and he's in fact set the fastest lap of the race. Goofball Antics 17.6. He pulls to the inside into Tamburello, and that is the position, though they dive together under brakes. Berto, very brave, diving under brakes, going very deep there to hold the position for third, to keep Goofball Antics behind him. But I think it will be just a matter of time as they swing through the Villeneuve chicane and into the Tosa hairpin. Goofball, again, a much bigger pace advantage he should have. I think he should have gone much deeper into that braking zone.
I think he thought that he had psychologically won that battle already. And probably didn't break as deep as he probably could have, and as such, Berto was willing to hang it around the outside and retain the position. Now, every lap that Berto can keep Goofball behind him, he will begin to believe, because the advantage that Goofball Antics has over him will gradually diminish as the race goes on, and the performance of those tyres with Goofball Antics on the softs and Birdo on the mediums will gradually start to come towards one another.
Yeah, and it was at about the 10 lap mark that those tyres started to cross over for between the softs and the mediums. So let's see if Goofball can have a better run of it this time. He's not quite as close as he was through Ravazza, but he's got the toe this time around. He's going to have a dive into Tamburello, not this time around, not brave enough to swing out, and immediately you can see, being in the aero wash of Berto, Goofball loses so much time. It's so much track space.
Bit of a moment there for Birdo. He lost a lot of time on the exit of the Villeneuve chicane, and that has allowed Goofball Antics to close right back up. Chatter coming through from the live chat is that Goofball, in fact, Goofball Antics and Nether may well be a bit marginal on the soft tyres, according to Two Awful Guys, which is the pseudonym of Madbird, who reckons the softs only lasted about 9 or 10 laps. Well, that's different to what we saw from Nether, Bad Apple and Birdo, who made their tyres last upwards of 15 laps. For Birdo at least. I think Ziras came in on lap 14. So some different tyre life from some of these guys, but we've got Goofball Antics now challenging Birdo again, and I thought he was going to have a go down the inside of the Ravazza, but it was a tricky curved braking zone, and he's going to have to try again up to Tamburello. He has lost a bit of time though through the middle part of the corner. He's not quite close enough, I think, but he will get a tremendous slipstream down this straight, and he is gaining all through this part. He goes down the inside at Tamburello, but he thinks better of that one, and he's going to have to try again.
Birdo. Oh no, Birdo's gone off. Birdo's gone off just immediately in front of him.
Oh, that is a big one. That is a big one. Oh my goodness, that has put Birdo completely out of the race. And what on earth happened there?
I was just about to say, he's done a great job through that section, and he just got a little right on the curb and picked up the throttle, and that was it. He just went speared off into the exit of Tamburello, and all that good work he'd done keeping Goofball behind him to nothing. What
a shame.
Yeah.
Which promotes Goofball onto the podium and Nether into 4th place. Now, I've also got word that Matt Dunlop, our other commentator from the rest of the series, has joined us in the box. Matty, have you got me?
Good evening, boys. Have I missed much?
You could say that. We just had a tremendous battle between Berto and Goofball Antics, but unfortunately that's come to a head with Birdo off the racetrack. I don't know how much of this race you've seen so far, Matty?
Yeah, I just caught the back end of that. I tuned into the audio on my way home from work. I was able to get out about half an hour early, and I saw a few of the other guys having issues with these cars. I was surprised to see Brenton Foley so far up, actually, given his not too confident in the wings and slicks cars until, of course, he crashed out, which is very sad to see. And we've had a couple of other dropouts, mostly just cars getting out of shape by the sounds of it, and just overcorrecting into fences and whatnot, as we saw Birdo do. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The biggest thing from our point of view, Michael and I have been following with great interest this different tyre strategy that's been going on with the guys who qualified on the soft tyres as opposed to the medium tyres. But the cream rises to the top. It's Ziras from Bad Apple, and Goofball Antics is plugging away there in 3rd place at the moment.
Beauty. Glad to hear it. Sounds like it's a pretty good race. I don't want to intrude and take over Michael's position too much, so I'll let you guys handle the bulk of the commentary. If you need a hand, let me know.
Thank you. Well, we'll chat to you again at the end of the race, but thanks for joining us, Matty.
Anytime. Pleasure to work with you, boys.
Just a note from the live chat, apparently Brenton Foley saying that he didn't realise that Parc Ferme was in effect, so he went into the race with a full qualifying setup, which made the car a bit on edge, a bit hard to handle, which may have resulted in his difficult race this evening.
Might have resulted in his terrific qualifying session as well. But nonetheless, it was good to see him giving it everything, and very, very nearly snatched pole position.
Very, very close in the end. So we are 5 laps away from the end of the 2019 Apex Rear Wing season. We have Ziras still in the lead in his Ferrari, which has become a bit of a feature for this, and from what I've heard, many other Apex Rear Wing events. Ziras leading away. and he has a 11.5 second gap over Bad Apple in second place in the Toro Rosso. Very clean race from Bad Apple. You've got to say, I haven't seen him oversteer a little bit, lose the front end a little bit. It's been very clean and very consistent throughout the entire race, and he's sitting very nicely in a well-deserved second place at this point in time with 5 laps left. And then third place is Goofball Antics. We saw his difference in strategy from the guys ahead. We saw his battle with Berto, and we're seeing him now exiting Ravazza in third place.
So behind Goofball Antics, it's now with the contra strategy, just as Goofball Antics did, starting on the medium tyre and switching to the softs late in the race. And for his troubles, he's got 4th place, and quite a comfortable 4th place actually. He won't need to stretch those tyres too much because he has 3 laps to Fruity Ping. And believe it or not, this has been the most attritional race of the entire series, and that includes the 1970s series, which I thought was going to be the most attritional round of the 4 decades of Imola. But Fruity Ping is the last man, 3 laps down, but we've had 5 DNFs. So that was Berto, who we saw a few moments ago, spearing off at the Tamburello chicane, battling Goofball Antics. Brenton Foley, who had a number of incidents after the Parc Ferme rules took effect, and he unfortunately didn't realise that, so he had to start the race on his qualifying setup, which he didn't realise couldn't be different from his race setup. And Josh Bagsy had, I think what did he describe it as? Took some curb and grass and then forgot I was minus a front wing and had an even faster intro to the wall. So that was that's from the horse's mouth himself, Josh Bagsy. Sam Smith had an internet connection issue, and Madbird also with an incident involving a wall, rage quit, and that was all she wrote for Madbird. Meanwhile, Ziras out in front continues to hold a 12.5 second lead.
Interesting to note from Brenton Foley as well, the reason you mentioned that you thought he stalled the car when we picked him up on that camera shot, he said that due to the habit of driving in tin tops, as we made mention of Super 2 Championship this year for Automobilista Australia, he went for the starter button and hit the kill switch instead.
Why did these have a kill switch?
A little bit of a comedy of errors there for Brenton Foley, unfortunately. Sorry to hear that, Brenton, and hopefully we'll see you back in action again next year.
So 3 laps to go. I might do a bit of calculations to figure out who's won the championship. It's Ziras.
It's Ziras.
But I think Sam Smith is going to lose his second place to Goofball Antics, who's currently sat in third place, and with that he will jump 3 points clear of Sam Smith up into second. Although having said that, I haven't factored in Bad Apple's points. Now Bad Apple actually jumps 2 positions from 4th up into second. Goofball Antics will stay 3rd, in fact. So that's a great job from Bad Apple, but unfortunately it means Sam Smith drops all the way down to 4th with no points tonight.
Just while you were working that out, we've had Goofball Antics set the fastest lap of the race yet again, a 17.5.
Do another one.
Yeah, so he's with that clear air ahead of him with those soft tyres. He's certainly lighting up the tarmac. The only problem is he's about 8 seconds away from the rear of Bad Apple. So unless Bad Apple makes some sort of mistake and gives up that 8-second advantage, I don't think Goofball has enough time to really eat into that.
Not quite, but it's not far away. He's nearly 2 seconds a lap faster, but you probably needs another lap or 2 to make it interesting. Bad Apple can't afford a slip up though.
And he's purple for both of these sectors again. Goofball Antics, a 21.8, the first sector, 25 flat in the second sector. Compare that to Bad Apple, a 22.6 and a 25.8. So he's lost a second and a half already this lap as we watch Goofball Antics come out of Ravazza onto the main straight. This is going to be another fastest lap, and it will be a 16.9 for Goofball Antics.
Hello, does this race have a late sting in the tail?
It's going to be very late because it's only 2 laps remaining and he's got about 6 seconds to overcome. But wow, if he was able to overcome this gap this late in the race, it would be an absolute stonker of a way to finish the year.
Well, the gap was about, 5 seconds at the start of the penultimate lap. He took 2.2 seconds out of Bad Apple on that previous lap. So it's only just, he'll be right on the back of him at the end of the last lap at that rate.
It might even be the drag out of Ravazza into the main straight that decides, as we've got a yellow flag at Variante Alto just ahead of Bad Apple.
And it's not Ziras because the timer's not showing anyone.
It was Fruity Ping.
Fruity Ping, who's 3 laps down. So he'll get out of the way because he's not racing anyone directly on the racetrack at the moment. And there he is, as you can see. So he doesn't hinder goofball antics at all. He can get straight back on it.
A full second in the middle sector for Goofball Antics.
hello.
A full second. So this could be an absolute grandstand finish to the Apex rear wing for Decades of Imola. The gap at the line is going to be around 4.5 seconds perhaps as we watch Goofball come in.
Well, it's under 3. It's under 4 now. So it could be down to sort of 3.5 seconds. Ziras is on the last lap. He's coming up to Piratella now, so we'll cut to him just as he crosses the line, but then we'll cut back to try and see the finale to this late charge from Goofball Antics on the soft tyres.
Ziras has been untouchable tonight. I think from the very first corner, he was a second away from the field, and that just he's kept clawing it away and was really just the class of the field yet again. So it takes a well-deserved victory, fingers crossed. He's still got 2 corners left.
Yeah, well, he had a few late wobbles at the end of the last race, but I don't think we're seeing... Goofball Antics' charges off.
Oh, no.
Grass for... and he's 30 seconds ahead of Nether, so that's the end of his charge. But Ziras crosses the line to clinch the championship. 3 wins from 4 races and an absolutely dominant performance in the Ferrari. Haven't seen that since the Schumacher days, and Ziras, a very, very deserving winner indeed. Well done to him. And huge congratulations to Bad Apple in his first series, getting 3 podiums back to back to clinch second in the championship ahead of Goofball Antics and Sam Smith. And Goofball Antics, who did his very, very best to try and overhaul the advantage of Bad Apple, but in the end just fell maybe 1 or 2 laps short and pushed just a little bit too hard. But well done to Goofball Antics. Nether is going to come home for a well-deserved 4th place in what has been rather an attritional race, but he's kept it on the island for the entire night, and he goes pretty well in his ultimates. I think it was the last time he raced this spec car, this spec era car, he came 2nd or 3rd in the championship as well. So well done to Nether, finishing 4th there, with Fruity Ping the last points getter in 5th place.
So what a cracking way to end the 4 Decades of Imola. What a cracking way to end the 2019 sim racing season. On that battle between Goofball Antics and Bad Apple, I was just tracking Goofball on the other screen, and you could just see Bad Apple in just the very tail of the shot start to appear, and I think he might have gotten a little too excited and thrown it away. But a very, very willing battle at the end nonetheless. And at the end of the day, a very, very deserving winner as well in Ziras.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure calling this race with you, and absolute pleasure, Maddie, for you joining us the other 3 rounds of this 4 Decades of Imola.
Yeah, it was a great fun to commentate, and I'm really sorry I couldn't make it for the start of this race, but I'm glad I was able to watch the rest of it because that was some really interesting stuff there. Especially that tyre strategy we're talking about as well. And watching Goofball Antics on that last lap, I was trying to get a word in at some point because he knew he was catching up on Bad Apple and he was pushing so hard, and I saw him get a few wobbles out of a couple of corners. And obviously, as we saw, he did take to the grass at the exit of Aqua Minerale, but he was able to hang on for 3rd position, and it was a well-earned 3rd position, and it was a great result from Bad Apple as well. And of course, big congratulations to Ziras, our series champion.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some of the drivers now in the lobby after having finished the race. Let's start from the winner, Ziras. Absolutely dominant performance tonight. A little bit of pressure from Breton Foley early on, but it was really, you were the class of the field today. Once again, congratulations.
Thanks, Des. Thanks everyone for showing up and everyone who survived in the end as well. Good series overall. Had one patchy race, but the rest were pretty clear, so yeah, pretty chuffed, thanks.
No worries. You remember to change to the correct tyres this time?
I did. That's caught me out before.
Well, you've learned from your mistakes, and that's all you can ask. Well done, Ziras, on another well-deserved victory. Moving along to Bad Apple, who finished second for the second race in a row, if I'm not mistaken. 3 podiums on the bounce, and another lonely one for you.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, congratulations to Ziras for another win. One day we'll keep up. I'm feeling like the bridesmaid more than anything else.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I'm sure one day you will fight back and take it to him, and probably the others will be involved in a bit of a fight with you as well. So I'm sure all your races won't be quite as lonely as the last 3 have been.
Yeah, hopefully not. But the other guys are pretty quick as well. I think they just made the odd mistake more than I did. But pace-wise, I mean, I think they're a bit quicker.
Well, we'll wait and see in the new year. Looking forward to seeing what else you can produce.
Just a quick question from me. That last section of the race there, were you aware that Goofball was hunting you down?
Yes, more than aware. I got the timer up. But the damn tyres were a bit slippery, so I was taking it easy rather. And I was just watching the numbers going down and down, you know. But yeah, I figured I had it in hand, but it was tight.
It was. Congratulations on your second place and for taking second place in the championship as well.
Great, thanks a lot.
Moving on to Goofball Antics, who was the other side of that very, very interesting battle. We saw you closing in on Bad Apple towards the end of that race, and were you as excited as you can imagine that we were in the box?
Oh, how was that, eh? It was a bit of entertainment, wasn't it? I don't know about excited, just more, I think I was scared more than anything. It's there's so much to lose, you know. It's the fuel situation was a little bit worrying halfway through that race. I started to short shift a little bit because I realised if I keep going the way I'm going, I will run out of fuel on lap 31. So I had to do a bit of lifting and coasting and short shifting there. And once I thought the fuel was all right, I thought, all right, we'll put the foot down and we'll try and better that fastest lap I had. So I bettered it once, and then I went faster again the next lap. And I thought I'll have a bit of fun. And I didn't even realise I was catching Bad Apple until someone mentioned it in chat. So I thought, oh shit, all right, well, let's see what can happen here. And yeah, I ended up crossing the line with 0.2 laps of fuel left, about 15 seconds worth of fuel. So I ran out of fuel in doing the donuts. So I didn't think I would catch him, but I thought I'll see if I can make it close for entertainment's sake.
And tight battle there with Birdo, which unfortunately Birdo came unstuck in. Tell us about that one.
I was really enjoying that, and not just because, you know, it was tight. I got past him at some point. He got past me again. Same as what happened at the start of the race there. But yeah, I was able to save a bit more fuel behind him. So I thought, okay, I've got the speed on the straight to pass him if I really, really want to. You know, right at the end of the straight there, going into turn 1 or 2, whatever you call Tamburello. But I thought for the moment I can just sit behind him, save a bit of fuel, and strike in a few laps' time. And I guess he done it for me rather than me having to do it myself.
There we go. So we thought you were trying to overtake him there, but braking earlier into Tamburello, that was just a bit of lift and coast, yeah?
Yeah, that was just purely stay behind. I didn't think I had the move done, so I thought rather than risk it, pull back and try again at the next opportunity.
Very good, very good. Well, congratulations on third place tonight and third place in the 4 Decades of Imola points standings as well.
Thank you very much. I deserve a drink, I think.
I think you do too. I think we all deserve a drink.
Amen. I can go behind that.
All right. Well, that's all. Pretty much all we have for tonight. I'll just throw the floor open to Matty if you've got any last comments.
Oh, well, at the moment, I'm just out on the track cutting a few laps because I saw the practice server reopen up, so I thought, beauty, I'm going to jump in a Renault and have a go. So let's see how far I can get around this place before I dump it into the wall. But I just want to say it's been a fantastic little season of 4 Decades of Imola. Great little idea that the Apex Rear Wing guys had, and it put on some really fantastic racing. It was a really good chance to see how these drivers coped in different machinery around what is essentially the same testing bed, bar a few changes in corners. But it was really good to see. Obviously, Ziras dominant as always a spectacle to watch. and a few other surprising results from certain drivers. Bad Apples, great debut from him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him in the future. And from all the drivers who participated, I just want to say a fantastic job for all of you for giving it a red-hot go. Even if you weren't able to make it to the end of the last race, we did have quite a bit of attrition in that one. It was still great to see the response from all you guys and the quality of racing you were able to put on. And of course, I do want to thank all of our loyal spectators as well who watched on along. I know Sue Smith, Sam Smith's mum, is a big fan of the show. And if she's still listening, I want to say g'day, Sue. Thank you very much for the support, and to everyone else. And I cannot wait for 2020.
Wholeheartedly echo those sentiments as we watch you pounding around the circuit, having an absolute ball, talking and driving.
Yeah. Very
Trying
good.
my best. Not doing a fantastic job. I'm not going to be setting the lap record times ablaze anytime soon. That was a very early breaking point for Tamburello. So I'll keep practicing, boys, and hopefully I'll be ready to jump in a car myself sometime next season. Who knows?
Who knows? Michael, thanks for joining us again in Matt's absence, or semi-absence tonight.
No problems. Thank you again for having me. And just to touch on something that Matt said there about different cars and coping with the way to drive those. What was your favourite of the 4 races that we had?
Ooh, it has to be the 1988 series. I mean, that was the one where we did have a very, very good battle for the lead throughout. Not to discredit Ziras's terrific performances in the other 3 races that we had, but the 1988 one just kept us guessing right through to the end. And well, it was a golden era in actual Formula One as well. But yes, it certainly was a fantastic test, this championship, of who could adapt to what cars, and certainly seeing some drivers come to the fore in other rounds and not so much in others, whereas some of them did stay towards the front end throughout. So very, very interesting, a little barometer of who prefers what.
Yeah, fantastic idea, and very well executed, if I do say so myself. And very much enjoyed the being a part of the broadcast team, and I think you've done a very, very good job of bringing this concept to life with the specific graphics for each era as well. So very well done, Steph.
A lot of fun. I hope the viewers enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed making them and reliving some of my favourite eras of Formula One. Well, that about does us for 2019, and we're going to finish up. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for watching. Have a very, very safe and Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in 2020. Bye for now.